Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. We come to you this week from Glen Rock, New Jersey. In a moment, we're going down the hall to talk to New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer. Also on today's show, we interview another Congressman, Leonard Lance, a Republican who sponsored legislation in opposition of the Republican president, and efforts to bring down this dam that has outlived its use. Also, did you know we have a state reptile? It's this little guy. We'll tell you what it is and how he got that designation. And now, our interview with New Jersey 5th District Congressman Josh Gottheimer. We talked to him about tariffs and taxes. We're taping this interview on the day after a special election that was considered a bellwether election in the country because it was a traditionally Republican seat and the Democrat came oh so close. There's going to be a recount, but it looks like the Republican won. They talk about lessons for races all across the country. What lesson did you garner from it?
Well, so I'm in my congressional office, so I can't get into all the political details, but let me talk about what I see happening in the country that I think last night told us. People are really eager, and I hear this all the time in my district. They want us to actually start getting things done for them. They want us to actually sit at the table and stop screaming at one another. And the extremes, I think, on both sides, are not the answer on the way forward. And I really believe what you're going to see is a whole new governing class that comes in this after this next election. People who are, because if whoever wins the House, it's going to be tight. I believe a really tight election, and you're going to have to have people who are willing to sit down and work together.
So you think centrist in both parties will be as part of the new class?
Well, let's say that if depending upon who wins, where it's going to matter, where it's going to pivot, if it's close, right? If the House is very evenly divided in the end, slightly Democrat or slightly Republican, it's actually the middle that's going to have a very loud voice, I guess is my point, which is going to force people to actually have to work together more. And to me, that's what's been missing the last years is enough people who are willing to sit down at the table. You know, I co-chair something that you and I have talked about called the Problem Solvers Caucus. It's half Democrat, half Republican. There's about 50 of us. And we sit down every single week, we're in Washington, and focus on where we can get things done together versus actually the screaming or the tweets. And I think, and I hear this all the time, whenever Dinah or I'm in or when I'm talking to folks, they want us, whether it's infrastructure issues or fixing how we're going to deal with getting a path to citizenship on immigration issues, or making sure we get rid of unnecessary regulation, they want us to talk to one another and figure it out.
Do they? I mean, when you look at the divide in this country, maybe it just gets too much coverage, but if you look at the divide in this country, it's deep and it's angry. And you see it spill out into the streets often. And yet you're saying that people are craving for congressmen and office holders to work together. We don't see that.
There's two different things going on here. One, you've got the who's loud and what makes better cable news. And I get what's better television. It's better television if you've got two people on the air screaming at each other, right? That makes for better television. But that's not necessarily, I don't believe that's where the country is. I think the silent middle, which doesn't get as much attention because there's no, it's not what makes social media move and it's not what makes cable news move, but people say to me all the time, why don't you guys just talk to each other? And right, and like when I did in business, we actually have to sit and talk to each other and figure it out. That's what people want.
With all due respect, I don't think it's just what cable news wants or what we see on TV, but the fact that you only have 50 members is telling, and the fact that Congress doesn't seem to be able to come together on big issues is telling. The divide is in Congress as well. Oh,
of course it is, because there's, to your point, there's less reward for people to work together. There's more reward, whether it's ability to someone to send an email out to raise money, or whether or not it does make for more exciting news, the screaming. That's where the attention is, and you don't get rewarded for working together, right? So you're right about that. But actually, I think if you ask the average person, and when I talk to folks all the time, they say, we've got real challenges, right? Healthcare costs are too expensive. It's too expensive. My prescription drugs are too expensive. I want to make sure my Social Security and Medicare are there. I'm getting these phone calls and getting scammed by these senior scams, right? I was just talking to somebody yesterday about. They want veterans and first responders and law enforcement are always talking to me to make sure that we always get their backs, and which is very important. These are the issues. People want us to say, why can't you guys just talk to each other and figure this out? And I just really believe it's what I've been focused on in Congress, and I believe that's what we need to do for the country, because that's why people hire us. That's why they elect us. They don't elect us to go there and obstruct. They elect us to go there and get things done.
Well, speaking of coming together and trying to get things done, the congressional delegation, much of the congressional delegation, Republicans and Democrats, came together to try and save the state and local tax deductions in the Trump tax cut. And you were successful to a point. Now they're going back for tax cuts 2.0, they're calling it,
right,
to try to fix some of the problems in the tax cut. And yet I don't hear discussions about the SALT deductions. How come that is not in the forefront?
Well, many of us are trying to get that into the forefront, right? As you point out, they gutted the state and local tax deduction in this tax hike bill. I say it's a tax hike bill because if you're in Jersey, many people in Jersey, your taxes are going up, not down, because they capped, as you pointed out, the state and local tax deduction at $10,000, right? It's for all your property taxes and for all your state income. And this for the whole tri-state area really got hit hard on this. Many of us have been pushing very hard to actually fix this and change it, and avoid double taxation, which is what's going to be happening for so many of us. So the problem is when you try trying to make this permanent, you're permanently putting certain states at a huge disadvantage like ours and favoring these other states that I affectionately call moocher states, states that take far more than they put in. Right, so this is going to be a very big fight. I'm all for lower taxes. Actually, it's something I believe in deeply. We've got to cut taxes and make things more affordable. But what they did was stick it to us, and actually with a higher tax bill.
Right, but it doesn't sound like SALT's going to be involved in this 2.0 tax cut. Would you vote for it if it's not in there?
If you're not, if you don't actually give my people in New Jersey and my residents a tax cut, I'm not voting for something that's a tax hike. And that's what it was last time. I mean, property taxes are off. I mean, property values are off. Property taxes, unfortunately, you can't deduct at the same level. So people are really feeling the pressure. And just wait until April, right? We haven't actually seen these tax bills, you know, people receive the tax bills at home yet for what they're going to have to pay. And that's when I think you're going to really see pressure. So they're trying to jam this through and give more breaks to Florida and other states on our back. And it's a joke.
One of the solutions you and others came up with was this idea of giving money to charity and having that come against your property tax bill.
Set up charitable funds in the towns. Right?
Yeah, I get it.
Yes.
And that's going to be challenged in court. There's no question it'll be challenged.
Totally, as we expected, yeah.
In court, do you expect to win that fight?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's why. We found that 33 other states have been utilizing the charitable tax benefit, the deduction for their end, to help them get tax breaks for their residents in their states. And it's mostly red states like Alabama that are using this provision. So what happens is the town sets up these charitable funds. You, as a resident, give a contribution to the law enforcement fund in your town. The town can turn around and give you a tax credit on your property tax bill. The law we passed in New Jersey now allows you to get a 90% credit on your property tax bill, and you can take a deduction on your federal taxes for contributing to a charity.
And there's an exact quid pro quo. It comes out exactly.
Well, you get a 90%. You can give in New Jersey up to it's up to the towns. It's all voluntary. You can get up to a 90% credit on your tax bill, on your property tax bill, and you of course then get to take a deduction because you're making a contribution to a charity. Again, the reason we win, and I've talked to the IRS about this, I've met with Treasury about this, they know they're going to have to challenge it because they believe they have to. They know where they're going to court, and we're ready to go to court, and we're going to win in the courts. You can't just decide we're going to let Alabama or Mississippi get this benefit, but not Jersey.
But how does it play out? Does the IRS just not accept it, and then you take them to court?
So
is that the way it's going to work?
Think what the IRS has signaled, and Treasury has signaled recently, is that they're going to issue rules saying that they said we're going to issue rules explaining why we're not going to allow this, right? And then, so we're going to see how this plays out in the next month. Then what I expect will happen, and I assume that's what the Attorney General of New Jersey will do, will then file suit, and then it will go to court. I believe the administration thinks they're going to win this one in the court. The problem is that the IRS has ruled on these charitable breaks in the past. The courts have ruled on this, right? As they said to me, we're in a bit of a pickle here. Because they know they can't just say, hey, New Jersey, I know you're doing this, we're going to not let you do it, but we're going to let Alabama do it. And this is my whole point about these moochers, right? You've got states like Mississippi that get $4.38 back for every buck they send to Washington. We've historically gotten back in my district 33 cents. Now, the good news is I've been working with all the mayors of both sides and fighting hard to get fire trucks and other grants back so they don't go to Alabama, go to Jersey. We're up 16% over recent years. Great win, right? For the people in New Jersey, tax relief, right, to me, which is a top objective. The problem is it's a constant fight with these moocher states, right? And now they're trying to stick it to us, as you point out, with extending the tax hike bill and making it permanent. It's a joke.
But what's just one last question? Aren't people taking a chance though, since this hasn't been settled? It's not settled law.
Well, what the IRS has said to me, and I'm not an accountant, so I want people to work with their tax advisors on this. What they've said to me was, since there's a New Jersey law now, and since then, and usually when there's a new tax law passed, there's always time where they might ultimately reject it, but they're not going to. They told me they wouldn't penalize residents for it. They might say no, and here's why no, and then we'll set up a bunch of court cases for this. But they're not going to. They told me they're not going to penalize people. You should ask the IRS this, but that's what they said, because there's going to be a lot of people with this new tax provision that take certain deductions based on how they're interpreting the new tax code.
When we come back, I do want to talk to you about tariffs as well, a related topic, and then also we'll get really local and talk about dumping in Vernon. When Jersey Matters continues with Congressman Josh Gottheimer right after this.